Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. You know, we all run into those problems where no matter what we choose, it feels like we're going to lose.
Right.
And today, we're diving deep into a book by Wendy Smith and Marianne Lewis that talks about a different way to approach those problems.
It's called both-end thinking.
Exactly, both-end thinking. And, you know, we have some endorsements here that really highlight how valuable this could be, especially for leaders like you out there.
You've probably felt it yourself, right? Like you're constantly being pulled between work and family, or
Absolutely.
you have to decide between sticking with the plan or taking a risk. And the book actually starts out by using these kinds of relatable examples to kind of illustrate the difference between what they call dilemmas, those everyday problems we all face, and the deeper things driving them, paradoxes.
Okay, so instead of just treating the symptoms, we're really going for the root cause this time.
Exactly. Paradoxes, they're those persistent underlying tensions, right? Like work and life, self and other, always kind of pushing and pulling against each other. And the authors really argue that it's our natural instinct to just pick one side over the other.
Yeah.
That either thinking, that actually leads us down the wrong path a lot of times.
I can see how getting stuck in that either thinking would make those tough choices even harder.
Oh, for sure.
So what kind of impact can that actually have, though?
Well, they use a fascinating example in the book, the near collapse of Lego.
Really?
Yeah. They were so focused on quality control that they almost completely shut down innovation.
Wow. If a company like Lego can fall into that trap,
Right.
that's a pretty clear warning for the rest of us.
It really is something to keep in mind, especially when you're thinking about making big decisions. Are you holding on to what's always worked, even if it might be holding you back from future success?
That's a really good point.
Like, just as Lego had to find a way to balance quality AD innovation,
Right.
you might need to find that sweet spot for the challenges you're facing, too.
Yeah. Okay, so either our thinking, pretty serious consequences there.
Yeah.
But why do we get so stuck in that mindset in the first place? It can't be as simple as just picking a side.
Well, I mean, it is our instinctive response.
Right.
And the book goes on to describe how we get trapped in what they call a vicious cycle of intensification traps.
Intensification traps.
Yeah.
Okay, what are those all about?
Well, there's three: cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. And they all work together to reinforce that either or thinking.
Okay, let's break those down.
Okay.
What are these cognitive traps?
Well, think of it like having tunnel vision, right? You get so focused on one aspect of a problem that you miss other really important information.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
It's like investing way too much in your main product, but completely ignoring those new ideas that could disrupt the market.
Right.
Something that those of us in leadership positions really need to watch out for.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
And then you've got those emotional traps.
And I'm guessing those have a lot to do with our own biases.
You got it. One of the big ones is escalation of commitment, right? We've already put so much time, energy, or even resources into something that we just can't let go, even when it's clearly not working out.
Oh, yeah, definitely been there.
Think about how that might be showing up in your own projects or decisions.
So we're basically emotionally invested in sticking with our first choice, even if it's the wrong one.
Yep, exactly. And then you have behavioral traps,
Right.
which are the actions we take that just make the whole cycle even worse.
Uh-huh.
They describe how Lego, realizing they went too far with the whole quality control thing,
Right?
they overcorrected and swung way too far in the other direction towards radical innovation,
Oh, wow.
which of course backfired.
So it's like you try to fix one problem, but you just end up creating a whole new one in the process.
Exactly. Overcompensate in one direction,
Yeah.
you just end up even further off track.
So how do we break free from this cycle of intensification traps?
Well, they bring up this fascinating story of Zita Cobb and her work on Fogo Island.
Fogo Island.
Yeah, it's a small island off the coast of Newfoundland,
Yep.
and they were facing a real economic crisis because the cod fishing industry had collapsed.
Oh, wow. So what do they do?
Well, Zita Cobb, she realized they needed economic development, but she also knew how important it was to preserve the island's unique culture and identity, you know?
Yeah, I see the dilemma there.
Right. So instead of falling into that either thinking, she embraced what they call a both-hand approach.
So instead of tradition or progress, it became tradition and deep progress.
Exactly.
How did that actually work in practice, though?
Well, they created this incredible place called the Fogo Island Inn.
Okay.
It's this amazing architectural marvel
Wow.
that was inspired by traditional building techniques, but it also offers a really luxurious, modern experience.
So it's a blend of old and new.
Exactly. It became this beautiful example of embracing both sides of the paradox.
That's incredible. Sounds like she had a completely different way of approaching those seemingly opposing forces.
The book describes it as having a paradox mindset.
Paradox mindset.
Yeah, a way of thinking that allows you to hold those seemingly contradictory ideas in your mind at the same time.
Okay.
It's about understanding how those forces are connected rather than seeing them as separate and exclusive.
This paradox mindset, that's really interesting. So how do we actually develop this new way of thinking?
Well, it involves three key elements: framing, resources, and control.
All right.
Let's start with framing. Think of that classic elephant analogy, right?
Okay.
You've got several people standing around an elephant, but they can each only see one part.
Right.
They probably describe the elephant very differently based on their limited view.
So it's about perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We might be so focused on our own narrow view that we miss the bigger picture, just like those people with the elephant.
Exactly. They actually use the gorilla experiment to illustrate this even further.
Oh, yeah, the one where people are passing basketballs.
That's the one. You're asked to count the passes. And so many people completely miss the person in the gorilla suit walking right through.
Because they're so focused on counting.
Right. We can be blind to what's right in front of us if our attention is somewhere else.
So instead of getting stuck in that initial perspective, we have to actively look for the gorilla in the room.
Yes. Those crucial details that we might be missing.
I like that.
And then when it comes to resources,
Okay.
a paradox mindset challenges that whole assumption of scarcity, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just dividing up the pie, it's about finding ways to actually grow the pie.
I like that analogy.
Create more value from the resources you already have.
So instead of assuming there's just a fixed amount of time, money, or energy,
Right.
we can look for creative ways to stretch what we do have.
Exactly. And then there's the element of control.
Okay.
A paradox mindset actually embraces planned luck,
Planned luck.
or what some people call serendipity.
Okay.
It's about preparing yourself to recognize and seize opportunities that might pop up in unexpected situations, rather than trying to control every outcome.
So not about controlling every situation,
Right.
but about being adaptable and ready to pivot when those unexpected opportunities come along.
That's the key. Cultivating a mindset that's comfortable with uncertainty and change, recognizing that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places.
This paradox mindset sounds incredibly powerful,
It really is.
but how do we actually put it into practice?
Well, that's where the paradox system comes in.
Okay.
It's a whole set of tools that are designed to help you navigate paradoxes more effectively.
Oh, interesting.
And we'll dive into all of that in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're ready to really explore those practical tools for putting both in thinking into practice.
You know, we left off talking about the paradox system.
Right.
It's like a collection of tools to help you get through those tough choices, right?
Yeah.
And the book breaks them down into three categories: framing, comfort, and dynamism. Think of them kind of like different lenses you can look at a problem through.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so framing first.
Okay, so what tools can help us kind of shift our perspective?
Well, one of the most powerful tools is changing the question.
Okay.
So instead of getting stuck in that either-or trap,
Right.
try shifting to a both-hand perspective, and you do that
Mm-hmm.
by literally changing how you're asking the question.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure.
Because I'm having a hard time imagining how just changing the wording could make that much of a difference.
Yeah, so imagine you're stuck in a career dilemma, right?
Okay.
There's this new job, it's exciting but risky,
Mm-hmm.
while your current job is super stable but unfulfilling.
Been there.
Right.
Right.
So instead of asking yourself, should I stay or should I go?
Right.
Try asking, how can I find both stability and growth in my career?
Oh, okay. So that subtle shift opens up possibilities
Exactly.
instead of forcing you to just choose between two extremes.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Right. It encourages you to look for those creative solutions
Mm-hmm.
that actually integrate both sides of the paradox.
Cool.
Now let's move on to comfort.
Okay, comfort.
This is all about finding ways to deal with those emotional struggles,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah, that resonates with me because, when I'm wrestling with a big decision, it's so emotionally draining.
It really is.
So what kind of tools can help with that?
Well, one of the key tools here is finding a higher purpose. When you can connect your actions to something bigger than yourself, it can give you that motivation and the resilience you need to push through those tough choices.
So if you're feeling stuck, unsure, tapping into that deeper sense of purpose can help you stay focused on the bigger picture.
Exactly. It helps you move beyond those immediate feelings of discomfort and see the ultimate impact you want to make.
Right.
The book actually uses the example of Seeds of Peace. It's a nonprofit that brings together young people from conflict zones, and they focus on this pursuit of peace.
Which is a higher purpose that goes beyond those divisive issues and creates this common ground.
That's a powerful example. It shows how connecting to something bigger can really fuel your commitment and drive you forward.
Even when you're facing those really tough challenges.
Absolutely.
Now, let's go into dynamism.
Okay, dynamism.
These are the tools that encourage you to be more proactive and adaptable.
Okay.
Which is so crucial for dealing with, paradoxes that are always changing.
Absolutely. So what are some of the tools in this category?
Well, one of the most important tools is experimenting.
Experimenting.
Yeah, it's about moving beyond that analysis paralysis.
Right.
And actually trying things out, even if it means you're going to make some mistakes along the way.
So instead of looking for that perfect solution, which sometimes doesn't even exist, it's more about being iterative, trial and error.
You got it.
Yeah.
You know how designers use rapid prototyping?
Yeah.
They create those quick and rough drafts?
Just to get feedback and iterate quickly, and you can apply that to your own life too.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So what about separating and connecting?
Oh, yeah.
We kind of talked about that before, but I'd love to learn more about how it works in practice.
Well, remember the example of IBM?
Yeah.
They were struggling to adapt to the whole personal computer thing while still dominating in the mainframe market.
Right.
They couldn't abandon their core business.
Yeah.
But they also couldn't ignore the changing world.
Right. So they had to find a way to balance those two competing things.
And they did that by creating separate divisions, right?
Okay.
Each one focused on a different market that let them develop really specific expertise and strategies for each.
Smart.
But they also made sure those divisions were talking to each other.
Okay.
Sharing knowledge and leveraging each other's strengths.
So they found a way to separate and connect.
Exactly.
Create a structure where both sides could thrive.
Exactly. And the last tool in this category is building guardrails.
Okay, guardrails.
It's about setting up boundaries or constraints so that you don't swing too far in either direction.
Okay.
Keeps you on track and helps you avoid those vicious cycles of intensification.
So it's like having a safety net to protect ourselves from overreacting.
Exactly. The book uses the example of digital divide data.
Okay.
It's a social enterprise that combines like a social mission with a for-profit business model, and they actually built guardrails into their structure.
Wow, interesting.
To make sure that both sides had a voice and every decision took both goals into account.
So it's about keeping that balance between competing priorities, preventing one from totally taking over.
Exactly. Those guardrails, they help maintain stability, but they still allow for flexibility and adaptation.
I like that.
And it's important to remember that all these tools work best when you use them together.
Okay.
They kind of support each other and help you develop a more well-rounded way of dealing with those paradoxes.
This paradox system sounds super helpful for putting both and thinking into action. It's given me a lot to think about in my own work and life.
It's definitely a valuable set of tools.
Yeah.
But remember, dealing with paradoxes, it's an ongoing thing, right?
Right.
It's about developing that mindset and a set of skills that allow you to really embrace that tension and turn it into an opportunity.
This has been so insightful. But how do these concepts actually translate into leadership?
That's a great question.
Because the book does wrap up with a chapter dedicated to leadership and paradox, right?
It does. And they highlight a really fascinating case study. Paul Pullman's time as the CEO of Unilever.
Okay.
He took charge when the company was facing all these challenges like slow growth, competition, and, the growing concern about sustainability.
I can imagine all those pressures. That must have been quite a paradox for him to manage.
Oh, for sure.
So how did he even approach it?
Well, he decided to make sustainability a top priority.
Okay.
Not just as a PR stunt, but as a core part of their business strategy.
Wow, that's pretty bold.
It was. A lot of people were skeptical.
I can imagine.
Yeah, trying to balance sustainability with the demands of a huge corporation.
Right.
That's super challenging.
That's a big paradox right there.
It is. But Pullman really believed that sustainability wasn't just the right thing to do ethically, but that it was good for business too.
Okay.
He saw it as a way to drive innovation, cut costs, and build stronger relationships.
So he was taking a both-and perspective,
Exactly.
recognizing that sustainability and profitability could actually work together. Did he succeed?
He did. He launched the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan.
Okay.
It was a set of ambitious goals to reduce their impact on the environment, improve health and well-being, and improve livelihoods.
Wow.
And he didn't just set goals, he actually put systems in place to achieve them.
So he really put those both-and principles into practice?
He did.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What can we learn from what he did?
Well, I think Pullman's success really shows how important leadership is in creating a culture that embraces paradoxes. He didn't just set a vision, he actually showed both-and thinking in his actions and in his decisions, and he encouraged his team to do the same,
Right.
Challenge assumptions, experiment, and really embrace the creative tension.
That's a great example of how both-and thinking can be used on a big scale. It's really inspiring to see how those principles can help tackle big challenges.
Absolutely. And remember, these concepts aren't just for CEOs or big companies.
Right.
They apply to everyone, from your personal choices to how your team works, all the way up to a company's strategy.
This has been a fantastic exploration of both-and thinking so far.
Yeah.
We've covered the theory, the practical tools. We've even seen it in action.
Yeah.
But how can we as individuals actually use these ideas in our own lives?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we'll cover in the last part of our deep dive.
We'll talk about how to apply these concepts to your personal and professional life, and we'll even look at some of those potential pitfalls and challenges you might run into along the way.
I'm ready. Welcome back to the deep dive. So in this final part, we're going to shift the focus to you. How you can actually use this both-and thinking in your own life, right?
Right.
We've talked about the theory, we've talked about the tools, we've even seen how it works on a bigger scale.
Right.
But how do we actually apply it to those everyday challenges, in our work and personal lives?
Well, the book really emphasizes that making this shift to both-and thinking, it often requires a whole mindset change.
Yeah.
And that can be tough. It's natural to feel uncomfortable when
Yeah.
you've got all these different things you're trying to juggle, right?
Right.
All those conflicting demands. It's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Ugh, I know that feeling all too well.
Right.
It's like you want to make the right decision, but every option seems to have downsides. Exactly.
So how do we even begin to move forward when we feel like that?
That's where the chapter on finding comfort in discomfort comes in.
Okay.
It acknowledges that it's totally normal to feel this way, and it gives you some practical strategies to deal with it.
Okay. I like that.
One that I found really helpful is building in pauses.
So just taking a break.
Yeah,
Clear your head, step away from the situation.
exactly. You need to create space for yourself,
Right.
Whether that's taking a few deep breaths, going for a walk, doing something calming like meditation, even just disrupt that cycle of going over and over it in your head
Yeah.
and give yourself some distance.
It's like hitting the reset button.
Yeah,
Sometimes you need to step away to see things clearly.
that's a great way to put it. And those pauses, they're not about ignoring the problem, right? It's
Right.
about coming back to it with fresh eyes.
Okay.
Another strategy they talk about is reframing negative emotions. It's about realizing that those feelings of anxiety, frustration, even fear, they can actually be helpful.
Wait, so you're saying negative emotions can be a good thing?
Well, think of them as signals, right? They're trying to tell you something important.
Okay.
Maybe there's a big challenge that needs your attention. Or maybe there's a disconnect between your values and what you're actually doing.
I see.
So instead of trying to push those emotions away, use them as a starting point.
So it's about understanding what those emotions are trying to tell us,
Right.
not just letting them take over.
Exactly. Use that energy to create positive change.
I like that.
Now, this one might surprise you, but they also talk about cultivating curiosity and humor.
Wait, bringing humor into stressful situations, how does that work?
I know it seems a little strange, but those little moments of lightness and playfulness, they can actually help you deal with paradoxes better.
Okay.
A little humor can diffuse tension, right?
Right.
And help you approach things with a more open mind.
So it's like not taking yourself so seriously,
Exactly.
which I know can be really hard when you're feeling the pressure of a tough decision.
It definitely takes practice, but that sense of curiosity that can really help you stay open to new ideas and perspectives, which is so important when you're dealing with complex problems.
Absolutely.
And don't underestimate the power of connecting with others.
So like talking things through with someone you trust.
Exactly. A friend, a family member, a colleague, a mentor, even a therapist.
Okay.
Anyone who can give you support, encouragement, and maybe a different perspective.
That's a good point.
Sometimes just saying things out loud can help you see things in a new light.
It's a good reminder that we don't have to go through this alone.
Exactly. Having that support system can make a huge difference.
So finding comfort in discomfort, it's about shifting your mindset, becoming more resilient,
Yeah.
and being a little kinder to yourself in those tough situations.
You got it.
Uh-huh.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. You're not trying to reach this perfect state of detachment.
Right.
It's about learning how to navigate those ups and downs with more grace and ease.
I like that.
Yeah.
This has been an incredible deep dive into both-and thinking.
It really has.
It's such a powerful framework for dealing with complexity and embracing those creative tensions. But what about those times when it just feels impossible?
Yeah.
When those opposing forces just seem totally irreconcilable?
That's a really good question. And the book does acknowledge that
Okay.
there will be times when you just can't fully embrace both sides.
Right.
Sometimes you have to make a tough call, even if it means letting go of one side for the other.
So it's not about finding that perfect both-hand solution every time.
Exactly. There are no easy answers.
Right.
Sometimes the best you can do is make the most informed and compassionate decision you can, given your circumstances.
That takes the pressure off,
Right.
trying to find that perfect solution every time.
It's about progress, not perfection.
I like that.
And even when you can't fully embrace both sides, the principles of both-and thinking can still be your guide, you know?
Yeah.
You can still strive for balance to minimize harm and maximize benefit.
It sounds like it's more of a guiding philosophy than a set of rules.
That's a great way to put it. It's adaptable, flexible, so you can make it work for your own situation.
This deep dive has been so insightful, and I really encourage everyone listening to explore the book further, you know?
I agree.
We've only scratched the surface here.
We really have.
But as you're facing those inevitable paradoxes in your own life,
Right.
remember that you have the power to choose how you respond. You can either get stuck in those either traps,
Right.
or you can embrace that creative tension and find those innovative solutions.
You might even surprise yourself with what you can achieve.
That's a great takeaway. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.